Yay. Welcome, everyone. Well, you're in for a very special, valuable treat. Today is Wednesday, January 21st, and I have a very special guest here who is going to break down cybersecurity insurance and really make it super clear on what you need to know. And the title of the event that Corey is here to do today is called Is Cybersecurity a Safety Net? So I am really looking forward
Today
to
is Wednesday, January 21st.
welcoming Corey. And I am very, very excited about anyone here that's live that has any questions. Corey has made 15 minutes to answer Q&A at the end. And then I would also encourage anyone who is viewing the recording, please feel free to leave your questions in the comments, okay? Because when you leave them in the comments, those might be other questions that people wanted to ask or didn't really know how to formulate it or to ask. So if you do that, you will also be helping others and also, of course, yourself and your company. So without further ado, I am going to bring the special guest here today, and then I'm going to go in the I'm going to go off stage and I'll be checking the chat. So feel free to join in there. Welcome, Corey Lancaster. We're so glad to have you.
Thanks. Good to be here. Good to be here.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you because you are just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this. And there are so many companies out there who don't have the right safety nets in place and they don't really always know what to do. So that's why you're here today.
Awesome. Yeah. Appreciate it. Good to be here. Happy to be here.
So why don't you just give us just a little brief overview, anything that you really want people to know, because we everyone knows, likes, and trusts you. We already know that. Okay. But is there anything in particular that you want people to know today about the presentation?
Like anything, my disclaimer, there's no absolutes, but it's just about the basics, right? Information is power. The goal was to share some information with everybody so that they have a little bit more to go to battle with tomorrow. I'm a firm believer in if I can do 1% better today than tomorrow, then I'm 5% better next week. So this little incremental steps to get us to where we need to go. To build out safe and secure business. Right. It's funny how we look at things. Cybersecurity insurance is more of an enabler. We don't look at it as business continuity. We don't look at it as disaster recovery. But it is. It is. I mean, knowing that you have something to protect you in case there's a catastrophic event is definitely one of the tools of many that needs to be in your tool set.
Right. And I don't know about you, but over the years, especially since 2017, when I started working more in and around the cyber market, there were many companies that did not have the solid business continuity plans. I mean, right. For whatever reason, or it was a work in progress, or it was something they were going to get around to doing. So that's why I love that you're talking about this, because if they, if they follow the steps, then they will not, they'll have a business continuity plan if they follow the steps. And of course, like you said, I know there are no absolutes, but if they don't go through this process, they are taking a huge risk. So, yeah. Okay. All right. So if you want to go ahead and share your screen, then I will. Let's see.
I'll do share screen.
Then I'll maximize it. I hope everyone's doing well today. It's really cold in the Chicago area. I don't know where everybody else is, but let's supposed to warm up, I think, next week. Okay.
Am I showing that correctly?
Yes, it could. Let me see if it can be a little bit bigger. I think that's the biggest that it's allowing me. Let me see.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the biggest. Hopefully everybody can see that. It looks good. It's in the center of the screen. I just enlarged it
Okay.
actually. So yes, if anybody's watching it on their laptop and then you hit at the bottom left-hand corner, you can enlarge it if you'd like.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. Corey Lancaster. I'm one of the CISOs at CAAS. And basically, we started this business to really service anybody that didn't have a CISO. But I think one of our target markets would be, folks who do not have a CISO under a $50 million revenue. CISOs are expensive. And so we started this CISO as a service business to kind of reduce costs and help people get that same Fortune, 500 level protections with a fraction of the cost without the overhead of having a full-time employee. But today's topic is cyber insurance, right? And this topic keeps coming up over and over again because a lot of claims are being denied and et cetera. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the illusion of the policy, what's good and bad about it, 4 ways that I believe claims die, 4 ways that you can actually do something that matter, and then how to build that evidence pack. What does that mean, right? And then some homework for you. I have a couple questions to ask you all, and then you can do some homework. If you answer a certain way, you might want to give us a call. If you answer another way, then you can pat yourself on the back. You can sleep well at night. All right, so we'll jump right in. Safe. That is the word that first comes to mind with me when people think about insurance, right? Health insurance, car insurance, cyber insurance, any type of home insurance, any type of insurance. The whole idea and objective of that is to make sure that you're covered, that you're okay, and everything is going to be fine, and you don't have to worry about it, right? That's one less thing on our bucket that we have to worry about, right? So you pay it, it's good, it's automated, you're good until something happens. And if you ever get a claim denied, or if you've ever been in a car accident and they found you at fault, or whatever the case may be, or health insurance, you do something, they deny your claim. Like, wait a minute, like, what do you mean my claim's denied? You don't think about it until there's a negative. And unfortunately, when it comes down to our business, getting the claim denied might be the end of our business, or it might be a major hurdle or major setback. So today we're going to go through some things to try to prevent us from having a rainy day. So in 2024, there were over 50,000 claims filed. They won't publish the denial rate. They won't publish the reasons. But I'm telling you, you got to read that fine print. Something was buried in there that was I'm not going to say loopholes, or I'm not saying ways out, but there are always some type of hidden small thing that is extremely manageable to comply with that a lot of people skip and ignore. So what's your safety net actually made of? If you paid your premium for your health care and auto care and home care and all this stuff, and now you're in the cybersecurity world, what's it actually mean? What is it made of? What's the meat and potatoes, right? Most people think of it, like I was saying, like that rainy day. That's why we get insurance, for that rainy day. Chris Rock says a thing where he says, why do they call it insurance? They should call it in case something happens, right? We pay the insurance in case something happens, right? So that's the whole point. But if nothing happens, this is Chris Rock's words, should we get our money back, right? So if I paid the premium, everything's in place, ransomware hits, I call you, I say, hey, I got my ransomware, happened. We had this catastrophic event. You submit your claim, boom, everything's good, right? Not really, because what's in that policy are bricks. It's not raining. Somebody's throwing bricks at you. And I don't know what kind of umbrella you have, but the umbrella I have doesn't have the impact resistance to handle a brick. So if something big falls out, like how long is the waiting period? Even if your claim is approved, it might be 6 months, 3 months. Can your business operate if your waiting period to get paid out is long? What is your sublimit, right? When I look at sublimit, I look at I think about deductible, right? Multi-factor authentication, you can't even get in anyway. So there's all these things that can happen that are major events that your perceived notion of an umbrella just won't cover. So here are the 4 ways that claims go to die, right? Number 1, I'm not going to go on record and say, hey, I think people lie on applications. I'm not saying they did that for their job. I'm not saying they're doing it for the cyber insurance. I'm not saying, but I'm saying people might mistakenly say the wrong thing. Let's just say that, right? And we'll leave that one alone. The controls gap, right? You had the tools, but not the discipline. Just because you bought the antivirus doesn't mean you installed it on 100% of your devices. Doesn't mean that you actually are running it on 100% of the devices. Doesn't mean you're accidentally excluding certain devices, right? Number 3, fine print. Fine print. And I'm gonna go off on a little tangent on this. I'm sorry, but this is where I really get a little off here. So before I dive in that, I'm gonna give you a little example. So apps, right? And I'm doing this because there's a psychology behind it. The only apps I like are Calamari. I like Spinach Artichoke. I like Wings. I like those kind of apps. I hate phone apps. I was at a restaurant with my son. Was at the Basketball Hall of Fame. There's a restaurant near it. We went. They was like, oh, to order, you need to download this app and order. I was like, I want a burger. I'm not giving you an app to get my burger. And the reason I bring that up is the user license agreements on our phones. They're super long. They're like 70 pages long. There's some kind of stat out there where if it took an hour a day to read them all, it'd take you over 8 months or a year or something to read all your user agreements on your apps. Your cybersecurity policy, I'm not saying they purposely make them long, but people are impatient. And because we're impatient and we don't take the time to read everything, I mean, honestly, I bought this is 3 homes I've been part of purchasing. I've been blessed, not at the same time. I didn't read 100%. I read 99.9 because I'm an IT security nerd. But like every single word in the thing when I bought the house, I'm gonna be honest. I'm just as susceptible to these things as everybody else. But people don't read that fine print. And we don't read that fine print, that's where we can get bitten, right? For example, $5 million policy, 250K sublimit. I'm gonna call it a deductible. CFO wires 400K. You're only gonna get 250 back because you got 150K out of pocket sublimit, right? So those are the type of things that we got to be aware of is this, that fine print, because really, and I'm going to the next slide and I don't want to go too early, but read the fine print and the evidence problem. So number 4 is the evidence
Corey,
problem.
excuse me, before you continue, so a couple people were saying they couldn't hear, but your microphone is not muted, correct?
No, they can't hear me at all.
Well, a couple people said that, but sometimes it's like we don't know if it's whose end it's on. But I just wanted to make sure you don't have a red line over your microphone. Okay, all right. So
they can hear you. Can anybody hear us?
I just direct messaged both of the people that said that. Not everyone was saying that, but I just want to make sure that for some reason the mouse didn't accidentally mute you. So I'm just waiting to hear back. I direct messaged the 2 people that said they couldn't hear.
We can do it.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, we can just speedy catch up if we need to. I actually just installed a hot mic. So let's see if can you still hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
So I'm just waiting to hear.
It says hover over the screen and unmute. Oh, he
Yeah.
probably was talking about somebody else.
Mike, Emery, and Soraya. I just wanted to make sure they could hear.
Yeah, Paul said he can hear.
Okay,
right.
sorry about that, but I just want to make sure. Okay.
Should I start? Hey, should I start over? Or are we good from point 4?
Uh,
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, I don't know. I think
people can hear too. It might have been user error over there, and that may be somebody we'll help them with. We'll get them through that.
Yes,
and
we can
Yeah.
fill in the
We're
blank.
good. All right,
Okay.
great. So that's number 4 point, right? Is the evidence problem. So the evidence problem really boils down to being able to prove that. So think about court, right? Without a reasonable doubt, proof, right? Can you prove where you were, at what time, et cetera, et cetera? Same thing when it comes down to just the basics of your organization. If you fill out that policy and it says, thou shalt do the 10 commandments, right? 10 things in that policy you must do. It's one thing to have, a consultant or somebody come in there and say they did it, but you got to prove that you did it, right? And if say you had ransomware and everything's all encrypted and they want you to pay out in Bitcoin, well, you don't have access to anything, right? Because your backups were included in that. You didn't have any offline storage. So, that's just something to do. The evidence is really huge. And I think people forget the power of printed paper. But if you get something done, print it out. Get 2 people to hold 2 copies. That's a great, easy, simple way to protect yourself. Okay, so cybersecurity isn't a safety net, right? It is not this magical silver bullet that's just going to solve all your problems. It definitely is a stress reliever, risk reduction factor, but it's conditional. It's like a marriage. When you get into a marriage, there's conditions that you must meet. Now, everybody has different conditions that they put in their marriages, but that's just one contract that I know that is conditional upon several factors, right? So, but right there, it's not all doom and gloom. I don't believe in fear tactics or thing like that, but simple things that could be prevented could wipe your business out. I mean, that's really the bottom line. I mean, you could get wiped out because you forgot to do one thing or you did half of the thing. But what if you can meet those conditions, right? If you want to win the game, you got to know the rules, right? Once you learn checkers, checkers looks hard until you learn. Chess to me was coming from checkers to chess was I was like, there's no way I'm going to learn this. My kids actually taught me chess, right? So now that I know the rules of the game, now I can win. I still haven't beat my kids at chess, by the way. They're actually pretty good chess players. They beat their teachers all the time. Here's 4 controls that matter, right? This is how we win the game. Multi-factor authentication. And that's for everything. One of the main things that people fail or miss is the admin or backup admin password needs to have multi-factor as well. We'll do all the users. Everybody that's in, log into the laptop or you log into this, you get the little email, text messages. Oh, we're good. But what about the backup admin? That's a killer. You got your end device. You got to manage your devices, the 24/7 monitoring. That now, it used to be extremely expensive, but that now as a service is affordable for most organizations, especially if you have, a small footprint of endpoints, but you need somebody monitoring those and make sure that you're not getting anything going on. Ransomware proof the backups. Again, those backups need to be separate. It'd be nice if they were on external, depends on how big your organization is, external hard drive for super small up to, managed storage in the cloud or something like that. But again, we need to have that isolation between operations and backups. And we need scrutiny and eyes on passwords and access to those backups. So IR ready. IR stands for incident response. It sounds corny, especially if there's only 2 people in a company to do an incident response scenario and test it out. But trust me, you need it. Because if, especially if it's a home, couple, right? Husband and wife team, they got a little small contracting company And, one computer starts acting a little weird and you're like, hey, is your computer acting weird? Like, no, the network's slow. No. And then next thing you know, both of them are, and then both of you are wiped out, but a simple, hey, let's disconnect this from that network. Let's do an analysis. Let's run some scans on it. Let's see if you got something on your computer, could save the other one from going, right? And if your backups are on the same laptop, then where are you going to be? Now, I'm speaking very small organizations. Obviously, large organizations, you have full tabletop exercises where the whole team gets in the room for a couple of days. We go through scenarios like, okay, this person got hit by a bus, or or we say win the lotto now. We don't say that, hit by a bus. This person won the lotto, so they're gone. And then you go through the whole scenarios and you figure it out, because you'll be amazed as the dependency you have on one another and how important your business need to operate if you don't really fully go through your incident response plans on a regular basis. Again, back to the evidence pack. It's one thing to say you have it, you have to prove it. You need to have this in a secure location. You need to make sure that what you have actually relates and transponds to what the policy says, right? I mean, clean your room to a kid that's 5 is different than clean your room to a 17-year-old. Well, the 17-year-old probably won't hear you anyway. The 5-year-old is probably going to do a better job. But you get what I'm saying. You have to be very specific in what you're asking, and you got to be very specific on what you're presenting. So make sure you understand that evidence pack. And again, don't forget about the $60 printer from Target. Print it out. Keep your evidence, offline, non-digital. Very, very hard to hack a stack of papers on somebody's desk. So, I always say we don't sell advice. We produce insurable outcomes. If you have a small business, if you have an IT footprint, if you're dealing with sensitive data, if you're dealing with, regulatory compliance, you need to have some type of insurance. Even if you're in education, you're dealing with student data, right? I mean, HIPAA, healthcare records. There's so many reasons why you would need to have cybersecurity insurance. Me, as a small business, I would say the continuity aspect is key. It can easily take 1 or 2 things wrong that can wipe out a small business, right? So having at least some help and some insurance gives you that added support. It's a constant, battle to stay compliant, to stay, off the, hackers wanted list. But, the cybersecurity insurance definitely helps out, right? So this is what we sell. All right. What about you? All right. So this is the homework questions, right? And this is where you want to grab a screenshot or something like this and then ask a question for yourself. Whether you work with me or another security professional, it doesn't matter. My job is to serve my clients. You all are my clients, right? Your job is to serve your clients. So we're all in this client service together, right? If we don't know the actual reality of our infrastructure, of our business, if we haven't tested our last backups, if we haven't, if we can't prove that we have multi-factor authentication, these type of things, if you've answered no, I don't know, maybe kind of, you might want to have somebody take a look at what you got going on and see if, if your risk outweigh your coverage. All right. So I'm gonna wrap this up with this last slide, which is kind of our, contact slide. At the end of the day, there's basic things that we can do as businesses to stay in business, right? I think cybersecurity insurance is a great tool of many. There's also some ways to, set up business structures and lease back programs and stuff like that. And if people have questions about that, they can ask me. But the insurance play is definitely something that I think is necessary, but I think it's something that should be taken serious, because when you're talking about tens of millions, tens of thousands, whatever the dollar amount is, that's something that deserves our attention, our focus, because truly that could be the difference between, being in business and not being in business. And it's really sad when someone actually does all of the due diligence they have, but then they can't prove it at the end. That's heartbreaking. When they have somebody that has went through the steps, invested the capital to make sure their business was covered, to make sure they had cybersecurity policies in place, procedures in place, instant response, and all this, and they ransomware, and then it's everything. So they can't prove anything because they have no evidence. Those are heartbreaking scenarios. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, we can go to the chat. I didn't want to take up too much time. I didn't know if I had 30 minutes or 45 or whatever, so I tried to keep it under 30. I think we made it. But now we'll open it up to some questions that people might have in the chat. Victoria, I don't know if you've captured any. If I talk fast, so if I talk too fast and somebody wants to see another slide, we can go back, or we can just talk. I can stop sharing and we can just talk directly.
Well, this was awesome, Corey. I mean, this was awesome. And a couple of the key takeaways, and I'm checking the messages here so I can see, if somebody writes in a question while we're live here, then, we'll do our best to answer it. Okay. But one of the things that I thought was interesting was you recommending to keep the evidence in paper form. I think that's great. I think
it's old school, but
school,
but it works.
And it works. So I learned that from one of the former accountant that I had, and she was like the best. And the thing was, this goes back like 10, 15 years. And it's when, people were starting to rely more on digital records. Mm-hmm. But she had a $15 million client that got audited. And because they did not have any of the records printed on paper, they failed their audit. So they had to close their business for almost a month. Because until they were able to get the payroll debacle thing worked out. So that was a big eye opener, and so I think that makes so much sense and so important. How did you come to that realization though? I mean, because today, unlike 15 years ago, it was just really picking up speed, digital, let's get rid of receipts kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I think it's so my experience at DOJ kind of led me to that, because DOJ, I worked there with Northrop Grumman for probably, I don't know, 9 years or so, and U.S. courts and U.S. attorneys, I would see these big carts of just, I'm like, man, these guys are in the Stone Age, but I did work on a system there, the DAR system, which is digital auto recording, and they did transfer things over to, everybody went digital, sure, of course, but there's something about that stack of paper that's just indisputable, mm-hmm. And of course, so for example, I remember we had our incident response plan. We had to keep it in our car, right? Because if the building was, national security, and the building wasn't available, or you couldn't get into the building, you can't get to the servers, we had a binder in our car. Because back then we had the Blackberries, right? And the Blackberries had a pin, and everybody had a pin. It was kind of like a social security number for your phone. Mm-hmm. But you couldn't remember people's pin, like you never used it ever. So we had to print it out and have it in our car, because if we lost the server and we had to pin people, oh man. But again, that was through a series of testing things out and figured out. It's like, well, we have to go to paper. Like, paper is the guaranteed way we'll have the information we want. And it's always stuck with me because of that. And paper, print it out, stick it in the closet.
Right. Yes. And I think that's a big tip for everyone. So now, when you gave the homework, which I hope everybody that is live here and that watches this recording, I really encourage you to take the time to do that. That's so super important. But here's my question.
Mhm.
to you, Corey. What what if what if they're like a bit overwhelmed? Like I know you're offering the 15-minute call just to kind of meet and greet, see if there's something that you can help with and how you can guide them to see if it's a good fit. But how do you get someone started? Like, what if they are overwhelmed? Uh,
Yeah.
what do you recommend for them?
No, good question. It's only overwhelming when we don't understand and know, right? And
Mhm.
like
Exactly.
anything in life, we have to practice, we have to read, we have to educate ourselves, we have to, seek out counsel, so that we can feel comfortable in this weird space. You know, I heard the term, cyber insurance. I mean, probably, I don't know, 2017 or something. I don't forget when it was. And I was like, what is that? Insurance?
Right.
I'm like firewall. I'm like, at that time I'm an engineer, so I'm all about the block and tackle stuff, physical devices, and block this out and block that out, and I'm like insurance, and I'll tell you an interesting story, and then I'll answer your question. So we had a very unique customer that was in the adult entertainment business,
Mhm.
and this particular client had, I think, 40 locations and whatever, and we were trying to get him to just do basic firewalls because he was using our network, and I was in telecommunications at that time, and we saw that he had all these vulnerabilities, and he goes,
Right.
well, worst case scenario, you know, something leaks out in the tape or video, whatever it is, images get leaked out before we want to release it, but that still does good for my business. He's like, why would I spend 200 grand for you to come in and fix all these servers when I can just pay 150 grand for the insurance?
Mhm.
And I was like, wow. I just never, I didn't have a comeback at the time. Now I have a lot of comebacks, but I didn't have a response for him. I said, oh man. I said, well, I was, just too young and junior. I just couldn't really,
Right.
I was like, well, it kind of got me there, but I said, but that was his business model. He wanted to transfer that risk over. And that is a business strategy. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. And this is where you got to seek counsel and get some help. And I've seen a lot in the industry. And what I would say to somebody that's overwhelmed, I'd say, look, just get some help, do some research, and figure it out. But I will guarantee you, most people have a colleague or another business partner or somebody that they've met in their life that has a cyber insurance policy, right? So if not, then let's do some research. Let's work together. You need me to research something for you, whatever. But the whole idea is to educate yourselves to not get overwhelmed. But I can tell you like this. Let me boil it down. You cannot afford not to know about cybersecurity insurance or cyber insurance, right? Security is in my life. I can't get that word out of my mouth. But like, you cannot afford not to. You don't have a choice not to. At least understand, do you need it? If you do need it, what is a reasonable premium to pay? What's an average premium to pay? How much does it cost? It's probably less expensive than most people think. But I will tell you this, having a cybersecurity team, a dedicated cybersecurity person, and a CISO are definitely ways to reduce your cybersecurity premiums. So those are at especially like the $50 million range. That means they have, anywhere from 50, maybe 250, 500 employees. I don't know, 150 million. I mean, 50 million now it could be a small team. But if you don't have a CISO, having one on retainer like CAAS or, virtual CISO on retainer will help you reduce that premium.
That's awesome. Oh, and I think that's great. And, just walking people through the steps, if they just can take their homework and go with that, that's going to help them immensely. And like you said, once they are more educated, if they are, they talk with you, they do the research, you know, they won't the overwhelm will decrease because they can have peace of mind. So we have a question from Paul Robinson.
Mhm.
I'm just going to read it. Okay. So, and I hope you're still here, Paul. What are you seeing these days around cyber insurance companies forcing companies to use DFIR companies on their panel?
On their panel.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, I think he's talking about the forensics, digital forensics, digital forensics, and incident response, right? Well, I don't know if I don't know. I guess I need to confirm what he means by panel, but what I've seen is that once a file is claimed, and I don't know if this has a dollar amount that's the trigger,
Mhm.
the insurance company now is sending teams in that's doing digital forensics to confirm that evidence that you had. And I bet a lot of that is because they don't truly trust the evidence that was submitted. So I don't know about having it on their panel. I would say, Paul, that would be something that would be based on size and risk, right? So remember, insurance is in the business of risk reduction, and I'm kind of spinning that way with me. Like our business, all we do is reduce risk. Like our job is to make sure that you have as least risk as possible, whether that's continuity operations or competitive advantages or whatever. So I haven't seen it where it was forced for them to have somebody, but I have seen it to where they performed that. It was forced for it to be performed before the policy was paid. And see, that goes back into reading that fine print, right? You have
Mhm.
this policy, you have that time limit of when it's paid out. Can you sustain your operations? A, you had an event. B, you signed the thing. Now they got to come in and do an investigation. How long does that take? How many sites do you have? How many employees do you have? Right? How many
Right.
locations? Are you global? Are you just US? Are you East Coast? You West Coast? Right? So all of those things come into play when it comes out to actually getting that check, saying, "Hey, all right, yep, you did your due diligence. The forensic team found out you had all your controls in place. You're good to go. Here's your check." How long is that? I don't know. I think every underwriting policy, I don't know if they're handmade, but I'm sure they have boiler templates and they adjust from there. So
Mhm.
um, that's a great question, Paul. Great question.
Yes, and I did ask Paul a follow-up question. If he responds, I'll let you know.
Okay.
But you may have already interpreted it. I just said, what do you mean by panel, please? Just in case we wanted to get some more information. So, Paul, did Corey answer your question? Let us know. Okay, now we have another question from SIPA. I'm going to read it. Okay.
Okay.
Cyber underwriting continues to evolve as insurers respond to shifting threats and regulatory expectations.
Mhm.
There are two questions, so I'm going to ask one at a time.
Sure.
What would you say obstacles to long-term stability in cyber insurance would be, Corey?
A long-term cybersecurity plan.
Long time. Oh, okay.
You need a plan. I mean, no one expects you to come out and be the Michael Jordan of security when you're right out the gate, right? But what
Mhm.
is your plan? You know, there's if you can do the research, there's a certain amount of budget that should be allocated to security, right? There's a certain amount of budget to be allocated to resources. A certain amount of money should be allocated for everything. Every dollar in your business should have a home, right?
Mhm.
And no one's saying that 100% or 50% or a majority should be spent on cybersecurity and products, but
Mhm.
something should be spent there. And then as you grow and increase, so does your footprint, so does your risk, and then so does your exposure. See, people
Mhm.
don't realize they don't know who their adversary is,
Yeah,
right?
good
If
point.
you
Good
figure
point.
out who is your adversary, then you'll realize you probably got a bigger risk than you think, right? So having that dedicated security team, and this is as you go. It could be one person, it could be half a person, right? I mean, sometimes the CFO is a security guy, which is total conflict of interest. But when you're small, you have to do that, and that's okay. You have to get there. But once you get to a certain size, you got to spend that money to get somebody else to take over that to avoid that conflict of interest. Have your plan in place, and then eventually you get to the point where you have either a full-blown team or whatever. But you definitely should have to focus on policy and policy adjustment along that ride. And what's the second part of the question?
What would you say are emerging trends in underwriting practices?
Oh, wow. I wouldn't know what emerging trends are. But one thing I can say is that what Paul said, right? It used to be like kind of like, oh, you claim, and then you had your little evidence thing, and then we trust you. Nah. Now the insurance companies, because it's so many claims, people don't realize that this happens all the time. I mean, most of us on this call has had some kind of personal data leakage. I mean, I've got OPM, I've got Home Depot, I got the TJ Maxx. I mean, my information is, one thing is for certain. Once everybody has everybody's information, it won't be worth anything, and nobody will want to steal it. But it's pretty bad. But companies have a lot more gold nuggets than most individuals. So if you know somebody that's had a personal identity theft, the chances of a business having some type of cybersecurity leak, compromise, or whatever is, in my opinion, greater because they have more information, more data, more money, right?
Mhm.
And so I just think that, I think that the due diligence checks are coming, and I think they're coming maybe even annually now.
I see.
You know what I mean? Versus like, why wait for the claim? Now, insurance got to kick out these millions and millions of dollars. It's cheaper for them to send out somebody that for, I don't know, 50K or whatever, do a validation check and confirm that you're not meeting that policy. So that if something happens, they don't pay it out, then they're waiting and paying out millions and then discovering later that they probably shouldn't have.
Well, I think that makes complete sense. And it's all about being prepared, doing your homework, even though, of course, some people like to resist it, or maybe I don't need it now, all the things that they are going through, because of course they're not, if they are, new to this or building the business, they may not always be aware. They may not think that they need it. That's why it's, most important for them to figure out, talk to an expert like you so that they can determine, what's their best next step.
Right.
So I have another question. I like questions, and I'm just asking some questions that some other people may be interested in as well. But you mentioned it already. But and I know that we've talked about this, but this is something I feel very strongly about. I really, really believe from what I've seen in the past as well that, C-suite executives should really do whatever they need to stay in their lane, because when they're doing the double duty of when they're doing, I could put my video on. Yeah.
That's fine.
Yes, I can put my video on. Yes. So when they're doing the double duty, number one, they may not be skilled, right? Chances are they're not. Okay. But then I'm also concerned. I just wanted to see if you could speak to how, could that disqualify them because they don't have a CISO? And I know you've kind of mentioned it, and we all know, right? Like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I mean,
No. I was thinking, I don't think that's a disqualifier. Remember, think about insurance, right? We're all about the risk, right? So,
right.
because your risk goes up to them because you lack, checks and balances, your premium goes up, right? So to reduce the premium, some premiums I'm sure are like $100,000, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $15 million premiums, right? It just depends on how big your risk is,
Right.
So even if you have dedicated teams and a CISO, if you're a global company that does all this stuff, you're still going to have a high premium because the chances are high because you have so many entry points to exposure. So your potential risk is higher. So it's all about that balance of, I don't think anybody, I would say, would be denied. I think it's more of, and that's up to like underwriting and a broker to kind of figure out this nice balance of relationship to say, okay, well, yeah, I know the CFO is doing this, but they're small, they only got this many millions or whatever. And don't forget like profit versus revenue. A lot of people have 50 million in revenue, but they don't have 1 million in profit, right? So that's another factor to consider too. So yeah, I don't think that'd be denied, but I think, you know, you definitely want to get a dedicated security person, team, policy, strategy sooner than later, like as soon as you can, and the economic conditions of, you know, produce that.
Right, right. Yeah, because I just think, you know, from what I've seen in the past is, you know, when people are trying to do double duty, and we certainly know that sometimes people are in a growth mode, and you know, there might be one C-level only trying to juggle hats and everything like that. But you know, this is something that really needs to be addressed. So, with that in mind, understanding that you do like shorter term agreements. Can you speak to how, you know, if they are in a period of growth, they, you know, could potentially, you know, bring your company on,
Right.
and it wouldn't be like they would be carrying, you know, like the full CISO necessarily unless they wanted to.
Right.
Can
Right.
you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, and that's the entire point. So, you know, I've done this work for big name companies, you know, Northrop
Right.
Grumman, Oracles, and General Dynamics, and DOJs, and Pentagons, and Freddie Mac. And I started saying, I said, man, I've worked everywhere. I really worked everywhere, and I've seen it. So I've been in every industry, you know, critical infrastructure, whatever. CISOs are expensive. I mean, because as soon as something happens, they blame it on us, and then, you know,
Right.
our
Right.
exit packages are nice. Like CISOs, they're paid very well. And I see that, and I'm on, well, that's great if you know, you have 50 million in profit annually, right? But not everybody's in that situation. So that's exactly why we created this, was to do the fractional stuff, right? So what people gain once CAAS is fully baked, which we are there, but there will be 4 of us, and with the ability to expand from there. But those 4 alone have over 100 years of experience, and I'm talking,
That's powerful. Yes.
I'm talking cream of the crop, right? So when we come in, whether it's me by myself or, you know, 2 of us, you're still getting the other 2. It's not like we want to review everything together, right? We review everything and make a decision collectively as a group. But just having that plan, onesie, twosies, like, hey, come in, let's do an assessment. Let's do an assessment. You can do, I need a strategy, right? We're broke now, not broke. We're starting out now. We're starting out now.
Yeah, no.
And the little St. Louis came out of me there.
Yeah.
Starting out now. We're starting out now, and our aspirations is to do X, Y, Z. But when you get down to Z, you know, and I believe in setting goals, making goals, and meeting goals.
Right.
You need to slowly incorporate these things into the culture of the company before you get so big and you're so laid back and Birkenstocks and shorts at work that nobody is really going to take it serious. So you got to bake it in at the beginning. It's far easier to include security from day one than it is to slap it on at the end. You know, it's just, you know, so the evolution should include, you know, a CISO as a service. For example, company needs CMMC, right? And
can you say what that is? Just
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm back.
doesn't
So
know.
if you do work with the federal government, there is a checklist you must meet to continue to do work with the federal government. And I think it's a needed thing. It's going back and forth with the regulations and what's really required and all this, but finally they got it. If you basically look up the NIST 171 document, NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technologies. You just Google NIST 171 and then CMMC, you can figure it out. But basically it's 110-ish controls. I'm using this lightly because there's a lot of subcomponents too, and you got to meet this checklist, right? Well, like, I don't know. Well, if you had a CISO on retainer, for example, $5,000 a month, $15,000 a month, depends on how big you are, whatever. You know, you have a CISO on retainer, that person can help you guide that process, help you get through that process. A lot of CISOs aren't hands-on. Some of them have never been hands-on. And I'd argue if you have a CISO that's never been hands-on, I don't know. I have my opinions about that. But, you know, You need to have somebody that can know that walk and do that and help advise you through those things, right? That is a huge thing now that anybody that's in the federal government space, you have to do it. You know, there's no like, oh, you used to be able to, just like with the cybersecurity insurance, right? You're like, oh, I did it. And then you can hand it to the government, and the government say, oh, they did it. Now they're like, I need evidence, right? Think about it. The whole world now, especially with AI and fake this and fake that, due diligence is a must in business and operation and supply chain and continuity of operations. If you're not doing due diligence across the board with your succession planning, your recruiting, your hiring, your policies, your insurance, you don't just go out and be like, oh, let me get that MetLife insurance. Let me go out and just get this New York Life. You do due diligence, right? So everything is now going to that. I think the world is shifting to trust no one, permit by exception. And I think, security companies are doing that. Companies are doing it to their vendors and suppliers. Like all of this now is getting down to, you got to meet, you can't get around security. It's just part of it. The security is just everywhere. If you're online, you need to be secure. And
right.
Yeah.
And if you're having, if you're responsible for other people's data, because when I had my caregiving company, the one thing that same accountant I mentioned, she would not allow me to use any kind of hotspots because of the fact that I had an app that was running that had employees' social security numbers.
Yeah.
And, that was super important. But, to this day, even though I don't have that company anymore, I don't use the hotspots. I mean, because Marcia trained me.
But HE double hockey sticks. No.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. Use your phone. Your phone is an encrypted satellite communications link. Use your phone. Don't know. Starbucks, I'm telling you, airports, nah.
Yeah.
As a security person, I can't do it.
Right. It's just not worth it, So I feel fortunate that I was trained by somebody, who wasn't in cyber. I mean, she was an accountant, but she knew where the constraints, where the pitfalls would be. And like back then it was more like business insurance.
Especially,
you know what I'm saying? It was not going to be covered, So anyways, so I think that's super important. And I do bring that up because I know there were some home care companies registered, and, we certainly want to make sure that they get their questions answered. Me being a home care company, I know where, what we had to watch out for. But in today's world, it's a lot different. I exited that in 2018. That was 8 years ago. So I really welcome anybody that's either here or listening to the recording, really, do your homework, reach out to Corey and do that 15-minute conversation. But I think to make sure that everybody's time, is spent very well, I would say that it should be the owner of the caregiving company, unless they do have like cyber. But most of the time, it would be the owner, so that they could have a direct conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the cyber, let me say cyber, the attack surface of the elderly has grown potentially.
Oh,
the boomers are the largest population. They didn't grow up with a computer in their hand like today's kids, and they're a big target. In fact, a friend of mine wrote a book on that. I don't have it readily available.
Yes,
that I got over. I got over a Christmas. That this basically is a book just dedicated to.
It's a workbook.
Yeah. And it helps you go through the scenarios. Like, don't click on links, and I mean, it's a very good, and that is a market that we need to address.
It's a big market. It's something I'm very passionate about with the elderly, because I want to, I'm going to start a nonprofit within 5 years. But what I have to say about that I want people to be aware of when you're talking about, the elderly, things happen. And I'm going to be sending your friend's book to one of my clients, because he was in disappointed to say this, but who even knows, who was in there, who took it. He was in a Social Security office in Colorado, and he had, his briefcase with his brother's sensitive information in a folder, because he was there advocating for his brother. They're trying to get everything in in place because he's in a facility. Well, the briefcase disappeared with my client's MacBook, but what my client was most concerned about, because that was secure, his MacBook was secure, was the paper file with all of his brother's sensitive information. So things happen. And, and when we're talking about the elderly and the caregiving companies that are working with the elderly, this is not something that we can ignore, well, not even ignore. It's not like anybody's intentionally, but just, it has to be a priority. So I would encourage everybody to, if it's not already, make it a priority to have the discussion, and just tell yourself that you're going to work on, one thing at a time. If you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed or resistant, they will be so happy, Corey, if they do what you say, and then they have the peace of mind. Then they're not going to be having those sleepless nights like, oh my gosh, or they're not going to have those regrets like, I wish I would have done that, kind of thing, right?
I think people think it's like uber expensive, and there's a cost to anything, right? But like, what's the cost of you not doing business at all, right? And you got to look at it a different way.
Right. And that's important. And the thing that, I know law firms that had to close because of the fact that they had a cyber, this goes back like 5 years, but because they had a cyber breach, they just couldn't recover from.
Yeah. I tell people, it's funny. I usually start my presentation with like a joke or something, but one of the ones that I would lead with back in the day was, I love cars. So I'm always talking about cars.
Yeah.
Right? About my posts, it's always car related, but I had a picture of a brake of a car. Right. And I go to the people, and this is the mentality shift. This is the mindset. Right. I said, well, what do brakes on a car do? Right. And everybody goes, oh, stop, slow down. Da, 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 da. I'm like, yeah, they're great. I was like, well, does brakes do anything else? Right. And everything is about slowing down and stopping. And that's how they think that's how they think security is. Right. So then I flip it on them. I say, okay, well, how fast would you go if you didn't have brakes on your car? Think about a skateboard. You're not up to just jump on top of that big hill and skate down. There's no brakes on the skateboard, right? So it's a different way of approaching. So security doesn't stop you. We enable you to go faster. And this due diligence and all this stuff up front, as you scale and grow your business, and as you get into regulatory issues and things like that, you already have this baked into the fiber of your organization, or you shift the fabric in the direction of your organization to adopt these type of principles to do due diligence. It's all about due diligence. Hygiene. Wake up every day, you brush your teeth, wash your face. You wake up every day. Hey, am I protecting my client data? Am I protecting my personal IP, my company IP, so that I can continue to do business later? Insurance is just one of the many, and it's a great tool. Great tool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, and it's here. Like, it's not something like I was talking about like years ago, 15 years ago, whatever. I didn't really even hear about it. I didn't even know that existed. But it is something. It's here. It needs to be. Well, people need to have a business continuity plan, like we were saying, and that needs to be an integral part of it. So that sounds good. Now I was just looking to make sure that if we had any other questions before we wrap up. I think, Paul, it sounds like we answered his question.
Yeah.
Because he said he
and
was
I put
there.
the link to that book in the chat. I don't know if it went through, but I tried to do it. It said failed to post the comment.
I don't see the link. Or what book? What are you talking about?
For Dr. Sutherland's book.
Oh, yes. That link, that would be really helpful, because this would be a great gift for anybody that is looking to make sure they're not taken advantage of, in one way or another. And it's not even that like you could get it for your grandmother or your grandfather, whatever. You could help them to, complete it. If they need help, they may not. But it definitely tells you step by step as far as what you need to do to protect yourself.
Yeah,
And
I
then,
sent it to you on LinkedIn as a message. I can't post to the chat. So
oh, okay. All
um,
right. Okay,
yeah.
that's fine. I can copy it. Okay, and then Shaniqua says that this is definitely a conversation we need to have more of. And
Yeah,
she said,
for
thank you,
sure.
Corey,
Sure.
for this. So that's great. I don't see any other questions, but like I
Okay.
said in the beginning, we encourage anybody, watching the recordings, because this, LinkedIn, you'll have the access to the recordings in the next 3 to 5 days, especially. We'll see some activity. So do not hesitate to put your questions in the comments, because not only will you be helping you and your company, but you will be helping other people that may not have known how to formulate the question, or may have been top of mind, didn't really take the time to put the comment. So you're going to be helping a lot of other people if you ask the questions. Corey and I will be checking it daily, so that we can get your questions. And then where can you make sure that they know how to reach out to you so they can schedule that 15-minute meet and greet?
Yeah, I will share my screen real quick again. I have it right up. Window here.
Then we'll be wrapping up, or
There you go.
oh, what?
Yeah. So, yourcast.com, right? Yourcast is double A, CISO as a service. So double A, yourcast.com. I'm Corey Lancaster, and you can email me at corey@yourcast.com. And then my LinkedIn obviously is here. And then there's a link to book. I don't know if you guys can click that from the screen, probably not. But I'll make sure that in the chat, I'll post it in the chat for the 15-minute intro.
Yes, please do that. Yes, because I don't see it. Yeah, I mean,
It's a live link. I
Yeah.
can click it, but I was being too techie. I can click it and it will go, but if I send this out to somebody, if somebody wants these slides, I can send them out and then they'll have them.
Yes,
So if you want the slides, DM me for slides.
okay, that sounds good. And then, yes, if you put the link, then anyone, even the people that are watching the recording, will be able to click the link in the comments. So that will actually work out perfectly. Like I said, everyone will be checking daily for questions. We so appreciate you joining us and, bringing your questions and your thoughts, because this is definitely something that, like Shaniqua said, needs to be discussed more frequently. So thank you again, everyone. We're going to be doing some additional events that Corey will be hosting. And one of the next ones, I mean, we'll still be connected with LinkedIn Live and everything, but one of the next ones we're going to do is more of a private event. So that will be hosted on Zoom by me, and that will be very, very special, and kind of like we're around the campfire. Yes, because we'll be able to have the live interaction, right? Because Corey loves to connect with people. He's very, very connected in the Washington, D.C. metro area. He does, he's available for speaking engagements. He loves cars, as he said, so you can have some car discussions with him as well while you're talking about your cybersecurity. He knows a thing or two, I think, about cars. Yeah. So,
Book three is in.
Yeah, I know. You are the go-to person. Actually, I wouldn't even buy a car in today's world now that I know Corey before talking to him. That's how much I believe that he would guide you the right way. But yes, so one of the very next events is going to be private. It will not be on LinkedIn. This is being streamed to Facebook and YouTube as well. But if you are interested in joining more of a smaller group, so that you can ask your questions live. And don't forget, it's also an opportunity to network with other people live, which is one of the beautiful things that we can do when we move events into like a Zoom setting. So if you're interested in that, please DM me. And I will, or if we're not first level connected, please DM Corey, and we'll make sure that you get the invite for the Zoom event. We can't wait.
Sure.
Any closing comments, boss?
No, I appreciate it. And, just this, be safe and, leverage your resources. Now you know me. I'm a resource if you need it. Paul's a great resource. SIPA, look at that. Greg, everybody on here is a resource. We all need to know each other. LinkedIn is a networking hub. Let's
Awesome.
network. Let's network.
Yes, that sounds good. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much, Corey. This has been a wealth of information. And, it's just, quite frankly, if someone was upset, like it really does relax you, because now we know what to do. Like it's not like before where it was this unknown thing, like, oh, I don't want to deal with that, or I'll deal with that later. So now it's time to put that on your list. Okay. Goodbye, everyone.
Cheers.